Hey guys, what's going on? Coming to you today with another Armada ship breakdown, and today it's the MC-30. We're going to talk about that. A little side note before we get started here, I just hit 5,000 subscribers, so I want to say a big thank you to everybody. And if you haven't already, check out my Java video for X-Wing, because I'm doing a giveaway over there. Alright, but back to the MC-30. This is the last ship I'm doing from Wave 2, and this will also be probably the last ship I do for a little while, because I wanted to focus on the oldest ships first, because I felt they were the most impacted by all the new stuff. So I will do more ship breakdowns for Armada, but it probably won't be until after we've had some time to absorb Wave 6, and therefore the Wave 3 and 4 ships will be it'll be more meaningful, because it won't be that much of an analysis to give for like a Wave 3 and 4 ship when there's only been one more wave that came out after them. By the way, they both came out on the same day, so Wave 3 and 4 is kind of the same wave. So that's kind of my reasoning behind it. So let's talk about the MC-30. The MC-30 is a really nice crit machine, and it's very fast too. So it comes in two varieties. We've got the Scout Frigate, which is our red version, and that's at 69 points. Then our cheaper version is the Torpedo Frigate, which is only 63 points. Now these two ships are identical in every way except for the cost and the red dice versus the blue dice. A lot of other ships you'll see something different between them. Maybe the squadron values are different, or maybe the engineering value, or maybe it's the anti-squadron armament, or something like that. But no, these two are virtually identical. And it's very interesting because the Torpedo Frigate, here's a ship that has blue dice that doesn't have an ion cannon option, and also, here's a ship that doesn't have red dice that does have a turbo laser option. So it opens up some interesting combinations in some ways that we can, and we're going to look at that. We're going to look at certain things that go very well on this ship. We're going to take away, talk about the titles that are going to come with it. We're also going to talk about some of the roles that it can perform, and I'll probably close it out by talking about which commanders go best with this ship. So before I get into the specifics of the Scout versus the Torpedo, there's certain things, because these two are so similar, there's certain things that go very, very well on all of them. For one, Lando, because this is a very shieldy ship, but has very little hull. And so it's, with no brace and only 4 hull, it is very easily one-shotted if it gets in the wrong spot. Or if somebody just happens to roll just the perfect roll on you, you can easily get one-shotted. So Lando is good as an insurance policy. He's always very, very good for a ship like this, especially because you can sink a lot into it. Ordnance Experts is also always good on this ship because both versions of it have lots of black dice. So Ordnance Experts is a generally all-around good option for the ship, as well as Advanced Projectors. Advanced Projector, because the ship has so many shields, 3, 3, 3, and then just 2 in the back, but it's a lot of shields, and with 2 redirects, your redirect is not as likely to get hit by an accuracy. So Advanced Projectors is a great option. Now it doesn't always work, because a lot of times people do run XI7s, but this is one of those times where I think it's worth it to take that, because ECM really wouldn't do you much good here, because you've got 2 of everything, so you're much less likely to get hit by that lone accuracy. So that's why I would say this is probably one of the better ships in the game for Advanced Projectors. Another crew option, if you're not thinking about Lando, or if you're running 2 because a lot of the best crew are uniques, take a look at Major Durlin. He's one of our newest crew, but he would be a great option to help a ship that really needs to survive be even more survivable. Because this is a ship that, there's 2 really interesting things about this, besides it being a crit machine, is that it's very, very fast, but loses a lot of maneuverability at speed 4. But it's also, potentially really, really survivable, or really, really, really squishy, depending on how you fly it. And so this is a ship that has to be flown with extreme caution. And that is going to fly, kind of go into what I'm going to talk about with the rolls later on. But, if you want to make it even tankier, Major Durlin is a nice way to kind of, if you're expecting death by 1,000 cuts, he's a way to kind of cut that down. Lando's good against I have to stop at range 1 in front of a Star Destroyer, and Major Durlin is, okay, I'm going up against 4 TRC, CR90s, and, I keep getting hit by like 2 and 3 damage every attack. So, it's a great way to, depending on what you think you're going to face. Or, if you got 2 of them, 1 of each. So let's talk about the Torpedo, the Torpedo variant, the blue dice version. So there's a couple ways you might see this guy fielded. Now, I'm not going to talk about the 3 upgrades or the 4 upgrades I already talked about, because they can kind of fit just about anywhere, but I'll talk about what's kind of stands out. I want to say with this one, because you've got only blue and black dice on this one, if you're running an Akbar fleet, you might want to consider putting enhanced armament on this ship. And this is kind of unique because that will give it a color of die it didn't have access to before. All right, so now it has 3 dice, 3 different colors of dice. You've got your black, your blue, and your red. And with Akbar, you could actually have 3 red, 2 blue, and 3 black, which is, it's a really big handful of dice with a whole lot of possibilities there. So, but you wouldn't have that first red die if you didn't have enhanced armament, and you wouldn't even be able to trigger Akbar at long range because you wouldn't even have a single shot to begin with. So enhanced armament does give you that first red die, allows you to even take a shot at long range, provided it's not obstructed, and even if you're not running Akbar, you could still do it if you wanted to concentrate fire, but that would work much better with Akbar. Now, if you're not running Akbar, you could consider turning this thing into a super crit boat, because the blue dice and the black dice are the best combination to really load up on critical effects. So consider this: fire control team, so you can get multiple crits going on, right? And then for your ordnance, try assault proton torpedoes, and for your turbo laser, try XX9. So now here's a ship that, if it manages to survive, can do so much critical damage, and this is like Donna's dream. And in this case, you might even want to consider an intel officer for, if you're not going with like a Landover or something to keep your ship alive. An intel officer could help. You do get in there and you roll 6 damage and multiple crits, but they have a brace, and that you might not have as much accuracy here. So especially with all these black dice, so intel officer is also a good option for this. But yes, XX9 and Assault Proton Torpedoes, the Donna's Dream. Right? That's not a real title, I just made that up. But if they ever make it, I called it here first, the Donna's Dream. All right, so now let's talk about the Scout version. This is our red version. And one way you might see it is if you're running with Sato. So Sato is one of our newer commanders. And one of the things that Sato is great with is if you have at least 2 red dice, because you can change 2 to any color. So you could basically throw 2 black dice at long range. Now, why this version is a great option to run with Sato is that you have the ordnance upgrade slot, so you can roll your black dice at long range and trigger black critical effects. So that alone makes it very awesome. But another way you might want to consider fielding this is with spinal armament. Now, that doesn't sound too great for a broadside ship, so why am I saying spinal armament? Just hear me out. Now that gives you 2 red dice in all directions. So you're always going to be able to, or almost always going to be able to have multiple shots. So spinal armament and assault concussion missiles. So now you've got, a really extra, lots of extra damage from long range. And then we'll throw intel officer on there as well. Or maybe gunnery teams, if not ordnance experts. Ordnance experts is probably the better option, but yeah. So that's the better option there if you're going spinal armament, or if you're just gonna, if you're not running Sato, maybe TRC. It comes with this expansion, so TRC is pretty good because you got the double evade. So that's a natural. That's like a given. That's kind of an upgrade that's built into the expansion that it comes with. But enhanced armament is also pretty good because that would give you 3 red and 3 black, so 6 dice. Is not half bad, and with half of them you can throw at long range. Also, this one works pretty well with Akbar as well. But you have more of a bite when you get up close. But if you're planning to take advantage of the black dice, you need to put something on there to survive. Oh, survive. Well, let's talk about survival. We've got 2 titles with this ship, and they both deal with survival. So as for titles, the first one I want to talk about is the Admonition. Now, this one costs 8 points, and basically it's an all-purposes defensive title. What it lets you do is it lets you discard a defense token to cancel an attack dice. That's pretty much as simple as that. The problem is that you don't get to spend the defense token. It's not like you can take one from green and flip it over to orange. You actually have to discard one. So typically when you're going to use this, you'll discard one that's already orange. But you have options here because they can't accuracy it. They can't stop you from doing it. At least there's nothing in the game right now that can stop you from activating a title, because this is during the spend defense token step. So if there was something that skips the defense token step, then maybe that would prevent you, but there's nothing in the game right now that does that. Now this one works pretty much by itself, works pretty much all the time, although it does combo with Waylix Blissix, because he can allow you to get a token back, so it gives you 1 extra use of it. A lot of times canceling one dice isn't going to necessarily be enough to save you from a super huge attack, but considering it can be any die, you can cancel maybe a double damage, so that's pretty big. And usually you save that for when you need it, or a crit that's going to get through shields, so something like that. So it's pretty good, but 8 points is a little expensive. But you can use this one multiple times, so it can potentially save your life. And if you think about it, this ship being kind of squishy, it only has to survive 6 turns. And really, it doesn't even have to survive all 6 turns, because the first one usually the first turn is no shooting anyway. So it really only has to survive like 4 or 5 turns, and do some damage during that. So this one, if you use this once per turn, you would spend all 4 of your tokens, and potentially 5 turns if you had Whalix on there. So it's not a bad option. Next one is Foresight. So Foresight is really the amazing title. It's the one I like a little bit more so, because it has the potential to be even better. It doesn't work as well universally, but it does work pretty well, especially with Mon Mothma. So Foresight also costs 8, and it allows 2 things. When you spend an evade, you can target 1 additional die, and when you spend a redirect, you can target 1 additional hull zone. So if somebody hits you for 10 damage, for example, you can redirect to put 3 to one side, 3 to another side, then take 3 in the front, and only 1 goes through, whereas normally that would have killed you. So Foresight's very, very nice. Evade, the evade ability is really good for it, because don't forget, at long range you can cancel dice. So so you can cancel up to 2 dice. Now the reason I say Mon Mothma, that Mon Mothma is amazing because she makes your evades work at every range, but at medium range you can still cancel dice. And at close range you can re-roll up to 2 dice, which is fine, and that's good. But the real strength here is at medium range. You can still cancel 2 dice with Foresight if you have Mon Mothma as your commander. So that's incredible. And I've gone up against a lot of Foresights with Mon Mothma, and it's so hard to get damage onto that ship, because you've got 2 evades. So you can cancel 2 dice, and even if you concentrate fire on this ship, they're still canceling multiple dice. It's like the hard counter to a TRC swarm. And it's really, really, really hard to get through this. So if you want to have a survivable MC-30, give it Foresight and have Mon Mothma as your fleet, or as your commander. It's just insane. So roles. There's basically right now there's really only 2 roles that this ship tends to perform. One is the suicide bomber, and that's usually done with the torpedo variant. If you wanted to just get in close and hit him with blue and black dice, get as many crits as you can off, and probably die in the process. Maybe you can, it's fast enough of a ship that you can potentially, if you're first player, you get your ship in there and then you do your damage and then you fly it to safety. And that's generally, best case scenario. But a lot of times you'll lose at least 1. Now, if you do a whole bunch of MC-30s and you all set them up as suicide bombers, then that's a real fun game. It'll be quick though. And then the other role that it tends to do is as a flanker, and that's typically with the scout variant, because of the red dice. It works better at long ranges, so you can kind of have it, do broadsides around the outside of the battle, and it doesn't necessarily have to get up into black dice range. Although you kind of want it to be, I guess, a hybrid between flanker and close range bomber, because yes, it's great having those red dice at long range, but there's other ships that do that a little bit better. So the strength of this ship is its black dice. So red dice is great for the initial approach, but you need to, if you're going to play this as a flanker, you need to pick a decisive moment where you are going to make a charge towards the middle and get into close range. You want to spend like maybe 1 or 2 turns at long range and then dive into close range. Typically, that's kind of how to take best advantage of this ship's dice. So, commanders. Now I'm going to talk about the commanders that work best with this ship, and this doesn't mean that these are the best commanders or the worst commanders. The order I'm giving them is the order in which they affect the MC-30 itself. Now, this was actually a pretty tough list because this is a ship that every commander works with. So there's no bad option. My last place option still works. All right. So and then the top 6 were actually really close because they all have very nice ways of interacting with this ship. So this was not an easy list to come up with, and I expect somebody will probably disagree with me. But here we go. The last place is Garm Bel Iblis. Garm just is in a bad spot right now, and in this, the command value of 2 means they do get 2 tokens from Garm. But this is also a ship that can potentially get one-shotted, so they may not be around long enough to use Garm the second time. And, you know, so that's kind of why I did this. It doesn't have, you know, the squadron token isn't very useful for it. Engineering value isn't that high. It's all right, but, you know, there's really nothing that this ship needs those tokens for. So that's, you know, that's kind of why Garm is so low on the list. Next up is Maiden. Now, Maiden does work pretty well for this ship. The only problem is that this ship at speed 3, it's extremely maneuverable. 3 is its strongest speed as far as maneuvers. So while Maiden definitely can help it, especially at speed 4, or I mean, he can help it at just about any speed. It's not a ship that really has a weakness of maneuverability, except at speed 4. So it does have a use for Maiden. I just think the other commanders give you something better, and that's really it. It's nothing against Maiden. He totally works here. I just think the other commanders work a little bit better. So next, Kraken. So Kraken, this is a ship that, you know, its strongest speed is speed 3, in my opinion. So Kraken is actually a really good option for the MC-30s because, like we talked about, like death by 1,000 cups. Imagine 1,000 cups, 1,000 cuts. They're throwing cups at you. No. So like we talked about maybe having something like Major Durlin on there, or, you know, things like, you know, the Foresight, you know, title, which are gonna, you know, just stop one die here and one die there. Well, now he combos with all of that because he's obstructing every shot that comes to your ship. So, you know, you're making a ship that's, you know, squishy. Little by little, these little things are giving it extra layers of armor and extra layers of difficulty in eliminating this ship. And Kraken does that, you know, even better because he can potentially stop an entire shot from happening if it's like a one red die, you know, at long range, and they're going to concentrate fire, like a CR-90's side arc, for example. You can stop that whole shot, you know, unless it's Jaina's light. But so that's, you know, so Kraken's pretty good. The only reason he's a little lower on this list is that he does have the dependency. Like if you wanted to slow down, especially with like a torpedo frigate, you may want to like get into, you know, slow down a little bit so that you can maybe get 2 shots off. If you slow down, all of a sudden you make yourself much more of a target. Although that can play into the mind games. You're like, oh, are you sure you want to shoot that fast ship? This one's right over here. It's kind of slow. You know, so it can play mind games with your opponent. But I'd prefer, you know, commanders that kind of work all the time. So that's, you know, so Kraken's a little lower. So next up, Akbar. Akbar is amazing pretty much all the time. Works pretty much everywhere. And the only reason he's on this list, like I said, this was a tough list to make, is that, you know, for your scout version, you don't have the red dice built into it, so he doesn't work as well there. He still can work. You know, you don't have to have red dice to be able to trigger Akbar. You know, you can get into close range, roll your, you know, blues and blacks, and then also add some reds regardless. But, you know, but also with, you know, with the scout version, you still only have 2 reds, so there are other ships that work a little bit better at doing the Akbar slash than this ship, but it does work well with Akbar. It's just there are some other ships that work a little better with Akbar. So Akbar is kind of in the middle of the list. Riken is up next. Now, I talked earlier about, you know, if you had a whole bunch of MC-30s and you were going to send them all as suicide bombers, that's like one of the most amazing things to do if you have Riken, because they're all going to get their shots. They're all going to be able to take their shots. So that can be really fun, especially for a ship that's very squishy. If you want to maximize your ship and, you know, be able to roll its black dice every time, now you don't really have to worry about getting into close range because you've got Riken. Oh, sure, kill me, I still get to shoot you. And oh, now by the way, I'll also ram you too. And they've got the speed to be able to do that. So Riken helps make this squishy ship ensure that it gets to fire those black dice. Well, hopefully, if you fly it right. All right, now we're at the top 3. Next is Sato. Sato is really, really cool, but he doesn't trigger as well with the torpedo frigate. He works much better with the scout frigate because of the red dice. And I said before, like, one of the things that's so great about Sato is you need to have 2 red dice to really maximize it because he works up to 2. But what's great here is that this ship has the ordnance upgrade, so you've got the perfect combination to make Sato do some crazy things. You've got 2 red dice on the side, and then you've got the ordnance upgrade, so you can trigger black crits at long range. And the only thing that makes this not work like a dream is the fact that so many ships out there do have evade. So if you do get to roll, you do roll that black crit. And I've done this before, and it's a cool build. It's a great to fly, but a lot of people will just hit the evade and then cancel your black crit. So it's great and it's scary, but there are answers for it. So it's not like a guaranteed win, but it's a lot of fun, and it seems like Sato was kind of built with this ship in mind, in my opinion. So why isn't he number one? Well, I'll talk about that. Next is Donna. Now, I talked about this ship as a crit machine, right? So Donna is specifically the crit master. So, he's got that tattooed on his back. I saw it in the deleted scenes of Rogue One. Donna is the crit master, and this ship is, the crit machine. So they just go hand in hand. Plus, Donna's cheap. Plus, Donna works even if your ships aren't doing anything. Your opponent can just fly over an asteroid and you trigger Donna. Donna's always amazing, but he works really, really well with the ship that's has the most ability to crit somebody. And then my number one is Mon Mothma. Mon Mothma gives this one ship she fixes its biggest weakness, and that it's survivability. It doesn't even have to be the foresight. I already talked about how great the foresight is with Mon Mothma. It works well with all the other ones because it has 2 evades, and it's just you sink a lot of points into a ship like this, especially when you put upgrades on it. You want to trigger those extra crits. And so it's a real bummer when somebody kind of flies in, or even bombers too. Even like somebody rolls in with like a B-wing or something, or a TIE bomber and rolls, hit crit. Well, now you can make them re-roll that, and get a regular damage or a blank. It just is so many uses, and it's turned on all the time. Mon Mothma always works. And this ship has 2 ways of maximizing her, and it's something that this ship absolutely needs because it doesn't have a brace. So that's the commanders. Mon Mothma's at number 1. Let me know what you think. Because I can totally understand that there's going to be some different opinions. Somebody might have Sato as number 1. Somebody might have Kraken as number 1. Somebody might have Donna as number 1, or even Akbar as number 1. Let me know what you think. What was your number 1 for the MC-30? But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe. Check out my other video for the contest. We're giving away a Cool Stuff gift card for a Sea Rock Cruiser for X-Wing or whatever else you want to buy. And make sure you enable alerts down right next to the subscribe button. It's a little bell. That'll make you, because I'm going to be announcing the winner next week. There's also a contest on Crabbok.com. And so you don't want to miss the announcement when I announce the winner. So make sure you click the little bell. And that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Star Wars Celebration's coming up soon. We got 2 weeks to go. Are you excited for that? Let me know. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.